Hi everyone, I'm Lana Shea. I was invited here from my friend Michelle, and at first I have to admit I wasn't sure why I was invited to the page, but after talking with her, um, I realized that maybe I could help somebody or make a difference in someone's life by sharing my story. Um, I was going to write it, but it would be forever more, so I figured a video would be quicker. Um, it's a cancer story. Um, I'm going to say survivor story, although my story is not finished. And it started in August of 2017. I was at work. I was doing home care, and I'm from a small town where Michelle works, and I was in the city working, and I noticed a twinge in my back. So I called work, and they, of course, sent me to therapy and seemed to get better after a couple sessions, so I went back to work. Actually, I didn't stop working. I just went on my lunch break, went to therapy. So I had one specific client. I was spending daily with her every day of the week, 8 hours a day. And she was palliative, but her and I became very, very close. In October 11th, October 7th, I called work again, and said that the twinge in my back had returned and I probably needed to go back to therapy. So away I went. On the 11th of October of 2017, I got up to go to work, and I noticed that the pain was even worse. By October 12th, I got up to go to work and literally couldn't get up. Called my doctor. They wanted me to take more therapy, do some more physio on my back. So I agreed, and I went to physio until Christmas. By that point, things weren't going very well, and I stopped going. It wasn't helping. The pain was getting worse. So I was pretty down and out. It got to the point that I couldn't walk. The pain was just so intense. I couldn't lie down. It was, I can't even describe the pain. It was brutal. So I ended up with a walker, and my husband had to bathe me, wipe my butt, everything. I was in better shape mentally than what my husband ended up being. On March the 18th, I went to the doctor and found out that I had multiple myeloma, a blood cancer. This blood cancer had in fact broke my back, and by going to therapy, I ended up with 5 breaks in my back, compression fractures that left me immobile, pretty much. I started chemo that Thursday, whichever date it was, and I can remember the long weekend was that weekend coming. On the 24th was a Monday. They opened up the lab in Windsor Hospital for me to get my blood work done, because I had to get it done after I had my first treatment of chemo. And I can remember my friend was upstairs dying, and I was so sick myself I couldn't even go up to say goodbye to her, which haunts me to this day. Anyway, I got myself home, and the next day Bob went to work, and my phone rang at noon, and it was a nephrology doctor in the city, in the main hospital for Nova Scotia. And she asked me if I was all right, and I said, well, not really. She said, are you peeing? And I said, well, not really. And she said, can you walk? And I said, no, I can't. I couldn't straighten my legs out to walk. And she said, are you alone? And I said, yes. She said, you need to call somebody to come and get you. and bring you to the closest hospital. I said, oh. She said, yes. So I hung up, called Bob to come and get me, come home from work. Then she called me back. She said, forget what I just said. I want you to get in the car and head to me in the city, which was an hour away. If you start feeling bad on the 101, the highway, pull over, call 911. I have a team here ready and waiting for you to come. I said, oh. So I got there. They all come out the door, put me in a wheelchair, whisked me in. Kind of find out, because I wasn't peeing, my potassium was lethal. They gave me stuff to drink, which gave me the diarrhea, like, I can't even describe it. It was horrid. And then I found out that my kidneys had failed, and I had to go and have the shunt put in my chest to start dialysis. So this was on a Tuesday. Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, they finally got me into the operating room to put the catheter in for dialysis. And at 11 o'clock that Wednesday, I had my first dialysis treatment. I was in the hospital for probably, I think it was a week at that point. And I was sent home and started chemo again. I was doing dialysis, I'm thinking it was 3 times a week, but my mind for some reason just doesn't want to remember. And I found out that the tape that they put over the catheter in my chest, I was allergic to, and it cemented itself to my skin. So to get it off, they ended up taking my skin and everything off, which was just brutal. Took 2 weeks for that to heal. I quickly found out that the cancer department and the nephrology department, they don't speak. So I was literally the go-between both departments, and it got to be pretty overwhelming at times with that. So I ended up, I should bring up my notes. I wish I could. They're on my phone. I should have printed them out first. I had some pretty brutal stuff caused by the doctors there because they had no way of talking. Well, they did. They just didn't. So I had to have a lower dose of chemo, and my chemo that I had for the cancer was just a sub-Q needle in my stomach. So I was driving to Halifax for literally a 2-minute needle and coming back home, and then going to dialysis 3 times a week. I was still able to pee a little, so that was a good thing. At that point, we didn't know what was going to happen. Things got so bad between the departments not speaking that I ended up contacting the patient advocate at the hospital as I was at my wit's end. I didn't know what else to do. I had one doctor treating me for my kidneys, one treating me for cancer, and they had no idea what the other one was doing. So if it wasn't for me, I could have been dead for all I know, because where they weren't talking, I was giving bigger doses than what I was supposed to get. It was crazy. I wish I had my notes. I'm going to check my notes. Hold on. Okay, I got some of my notes here so I can try to remember everything that I went through, because it was a doozy. So for this cancer, I had to have a biopsy, and they go through your hip and they get a hip bone, a marrow, a piece of your bone actually, and they break it off. They send it away to be tested, and that's how they actually get to diagnose multiple myeloma. So after I had the initial one done, I did 4 months of chemo, and then I did another 4 months. So I had, is it 4 months? No, I did 4 months of chemo. Yes. And then I had a break, and then I did, oh my gosh. Let me look at my notes here. It's been so long. um, October. Yeah. It was the end of August. So from May till the end of August, I was on chemo. That's right. So at the end of the chemo, I had to have another biopsy done to your hip to see if there was any cancer left, if the chemo had worked. So, needless to say, it's very painful to have done. When I went in the second time to have it done, I had a doctor that I had never met before, and it was pretty traumatic. He froze me. That's all they do is local freezing, and it didn't freeze me. So he ended up giving me 4 or 5, took 4 local freezings, and the last one that he did froze my entire body. My head, took my speech, and I stopped breathing. I can remember looking up at one point, and my husband was sitting in a chair beside me, and I heard him scream, "She's having a stroke." The doctor was so nasty. He all but hit me to tell me to start breathing and not to be such a sook and wussy, and to take it and it would be over with soon enough. And I'll never forget how nasty and mean that doctor was. It was so bad that the nurse that was with him reported him, and my cancer doctor I had at the time then, Dr. Robinson, came into the room to see if I was okay because her nurse ran to get her because I was being bullied and screamed at, and very, very nasty comments from him. I can remember he was leaving the room and he put his hands up in the air and he said, "I will see you for your transplant. I will be doing it." And I can distinctly remember Bob saying, like, "F you will. You'll never touch her again." I left that day in a lot of tears. I couldn't believe that I, having cancer that is incurable, could be treated in such a way, in a negative way, that just to this day still floors me. You can't. It's just amazing. So anyway, after that was done, they found out that what they thought, I was in remission. They tried to do a stem cell retrieval. A stem cell retrieval requires me to have daily needles in my hip to increase the making of the marrow and to release it into your bloodstream. The first attempt, when I went down, didn't work. So then they ordered a booster needle along with these needles. These needles make you sweat, make your heart race, you can't sleep. They're very painful. I had 3 of those at $10,000 a needle. Didn't work. Where they figured that I had somewhere in my body still cancer cells, and they were preventing it from the cancer. The cancer prevented the stem cell retrieval. So anyway, that was in October of 2018. In the meantime, I'm still on dialysis 3 times a week. And we had some friends in Arizona who offered to fly us down there for a little mini vacation to get away because of all the bull crap that I had been through at this point. And I have a whole list of stuff that I went through. Because the stem cell didn't take place, I had to go for more chemo, so I was unable to go on the trip. But the dialysis, I called them and I asked them if I could go. The very next day I went down for dialysis. They had paperwork ready for me so that I could go down, find out where the closest place where I was staying at could give me dialysis. The cancer ward, I had a week and a half to find out if I could go, or they had to cancel the tickets. Never got back to me. Never said a word, no call back. So we had to cancel. That is the norm. No call back. Oh, they tell you, yeah, any questions you have, let me know. Well, that's crap, because it doesn't happen that way. When I was first diagnosed, we went to a patient meeting of different people with different cancers. They all get together and explain what's going to happen. And I was told, that I wasn't going to lose my hair. They just filled my head with a bunch of stuff that we found out later was not true. And I put a complaint in against that. I mean, no one else is going to stick up for me but me. And the scary part is that my cancer is usually for seniors. And it makes me often wonder who sticks up for them, who speaks up for them, because I had to literally be my own advocate. I had to learn really quick the system, my sickness, and about dialysis in order for me to carry on. I couldn't depend on them because, like I said, they weren't communicating. So I found out, because they never talked, the cancer ward was constantly giving me appointments, scheduling my appointments at the same time that they knew I would be on dialysis, so that I would have to cancel them. So that became quite a big issue, and my cancer doctor had a nurse at one point. I won't say her name, but she would call me and with stuff that the doctor wanted or whatever, and she would say, if you have any questions, let me know. So Bob and I had run into an issue, and I called her. She called me back, and she was so nasty and hateful to me over the phone and kept cutting me off. I wasn't able to finish a sentence, and in the end, she pretty much, she had me crying, and she wouldn't let me voice any of my concerns. She just washed me under the rug. She was reported. She got removed from her job. I found out at one point the druggist at the VG went through my medications and found out that I was taking, that I had been overdosed 3 times on medication. So that became an issue. And then the druggist found 4 mistakes in my medications. And then after that, 2 more mistakes in my medications. If it wasn't for them, I would probably be dead right now. While I was on dialysis one night, I had a social worker come in to see me from the oncology ward. She sat down, and I wasn't in a private room. I was in the big main room with, 20 other people. And she sits there and proceeds to tell me that I'd be dead in 5 years. Needless to say, you can imagine, I was devastated. I sat there and cried. I was beside myself. I didn't know what to say. She called me the next day and asked me how I was feeling because I was so upset that night in dialysis. And her words were when I picked up the phone, I hope you're feeling better now that you've got to sleep on it. And you stop crying by now. I was devastated. That's when I contacted the patient advocate, reported that social worker. I couldn't believe that somebody as a spokesperson for a hospital would treat somebody that way. Having to deal with the oncology department, and they're saying, call me if you have any questions or need anything. The first year I was calling them quite a bit because, of course, you have questions. I got called back 4 times. When you call, you're put in a queue, you punch in who you want to talk to, and you have to leave them a message. And they'll check the messages the next time they're in, but I never got called back. Very seldom. 4 times in a year and a half. I mean, that's not good. That's not a good record. The patient representatives did call me back and took my complaints. The last I heard was they were going to call me back again, and that was 2.5 years ago, and I'm still waiting for that. The oncology nurse that had been treating me like crap, said that seems like everything is happening. They did say that everything that could go wrong was going wrong for me. But again, they never called me back to see what was going to be done. So, on April 17th, I was supposed to go back in for a biopsy a month after my last chemo, which would have been April of 2019. They never called me. There's supposed to be a month out after your last chemo that you get your scan or your biopsy again, and they haven't. And I was close to 2 months before they called me. So then I had to go back on those medications, the needles again, prep to get the retrieval, because they use your own stem cells for my cancer. They get the cancer down as much as they can with the chemo, and then they retrieve them. So this time it worked. I was put in the hospital. We went down every morning for 7 o'clock. They put you on the machine. It's almost like a dialysis machine. They spin the blood, and they get the marrow as much as they can out, the stem cells. And they were able to get enough out of me at that point for 3 stem cell transplants, which was wonderful. So September 19th, 18th, I was admitted into the hospital on the 11th of September, I want to say, 2019. On the 17th, I had a huge dose of chemo, which they said would take my hair, which they told me it wouldn't, that I would never lose my hair. I was quite devastated, and not at the fact that I was losing it, the fact that they lied to me about it at the very beginning. So I had my friend, my hairdresser, shave my head before I went down, and I had the dose of chemo, which kills everything in your body, everything. And the very next day, I had the transplant, which is they just hang the blood that you gave them on the ceiling, and they pour it through and they had to put another PICC line in. So I had one for dialysis and one for the cancer. And then it takes a week for you to tank, like really tank. You're sick as can be, and you wonder if it was worth it. I was in the hospital for a month, and then I went from there to the lodge. But I can remember they had to give me, I was really sick, of course, because it takes your immune system, like totally everything. Least little bit of hiccup, and they've got you on antibiotic drip. So I ended up with diarrhea from being in the hospital. Caught it, and I can remember being hooked up for dialysis in my room, and a dialysis treatment for me was 3.5 hours, and we were on our 8th hour because I had to keep disconnecting to go to the toilet. And I said to them, I said, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. So we disconnected. The next day, one of the nephrology doctors came in, and she said, I just wanted to let you know you don't need to do dialysis. And I said, oh, you mean for today? And she goes, ever. She said, your stem cells actually went to your kidneys and rejuvenated them enough that you don't need to go on dialysis anymore. Well, I will tell you, I was shocked. My other nephrology doctor said that there was a chance it might heal it, but they wasn't sure. And he wasn't holding his breath. But it worked. My last dialysis treatment was October, I believe it was October 10th of 2019. I came home a week before Halloween that year. And I slowly got better with my back. Having my broken back, I sat up on the couch for 8 months. I wasn't able to lay down. Somewhere along the lines in there, I also ended up with this was before I had my transplant. I ended up with a kidney stone. I had to go and have that extracted, and they put a shunt in me. Had that in there for a stint, probably, I think it was like a week. Went back, had that removed. Haven't had issues with that again, thank God. At one point, I was put in the hospital. I don't even remember. Oh, because of that, the pain. They were trying to figure out why. Then they found out that I was almost paralyzed. So I had to go for one radiation treatment to try to stop the swelling that was going against my spinal cord, which worked. And through this whole thing, I have logged all my cancer journey on Facebook as posts. I wanted people to understand what it's like. And people would call me, and instead of answering 10 different messages, if I just posted it every day, they could come along and do the journey with me. I have to say I did have days where I would sit and cry, but they didn't last long. I had too much to live for. I had my children, my grandchildren, my husband. I was determined, and I wasn't going to let it get me down. My goal was to get back on my motorcycle, and I did that. Mind you, my cancer doctor kind of shudders when she thinks of it. I mean, there's a chance if I was in an accident, I'd be paralyzed. But I did it. I got better. I was able to do it. My hair grew back. I take a low-dose chemo for maintenance daily, which has now affected me in other ways. I have severe joint pain some days. Sometimes I get up in the morning, I can't even hold a cup of coffee. I take a couple Tylenol and just wait for it to kick in to pick up the mug. My fingers just won't grasp it. The local, our Jeep club that we were in, the Shriners, my husband is a Shriner. The work where my husband works, they all donated to us. God loves them. Money, I was able to, get this sofa that I'm sitting on outside. That's where I spend my summer, sitting out here. I would love one day to get back to work, but I know my back won't allow that. So I've taken to babysitting my grandkids. I have 3 of them every day, and then I have my little grandson who's a year and a half. I have him 2 to 4 times a week. And I feel like, in a way, the cancer was a blessing in that regard, because I get to spend so much time with them, making memories that at one point I didn't think I was going to have time to make. When I had my dialysis line out, one of my grandkids come running, he goes, "Nan, now you can get in the pool with us." That's all I wanted, was you to swim with me. So, it's really the little things in life that everyone takes for granted. I no longer do. I guess my message of encouragement is my thing on life. I fully believe that this cancer was given to me as a purpose to speak up and to teach others. Let them know that it's not the end of the world. You can smile through it. You can cry through it, but smile more. Don't ever get down. Talk to people. Write things down. It helps a lot. Make goals. Set goals. Even if it's weekly. Achieve them. It's amazing how great it feels. But most of all, don't give up. Too many people have given up. And it really doesn't get you anywhere. I have hope. You can do it. I did it. You can do it. I'm rooting for you. And remember, you're always loved.